Thanks for listening to another episode of the Gifted Performance Podcast. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, as well as hitting the like button and the notification bell so you never miss a video. If you prefer audio format, search Gifted Performance on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcasting service, and subscribe today. Make sure you also rate and review the podcast, as that helps us out tremendously. Enjoy the podcast and stay gifted. Welcome back, guys. Another episode of the GPP, the Gifted Performance Podcast, where we give you the knowledge and practical takeaways to improve your own general physical preparedness. Before we started, I was telling him he is in rare company as a return customer to the Gifted Performance Podcast. The people said, we haven't had enough. Bring the godfather of SCN back to us. Bring the master of memes on again. He does have a real name, folks. I think some people actually think that your name is first name rugby, last name coach, middle name strength. Yeah. His name is Keir, and he's back again for another episode. Keir, how are you?
Well, man, thank you for having me. I'm honored to make the second appearance club.
So when I'm in person and I run into someone who knows me from social media, it's always, yo, squat dad. For you, when you see people in person that you know from social media, do you get RSC? Do they call you rugby strength coach?
I have once been approached in a gym by a stranger and he said, "Excuse me, are you the rugby strength coach?" And I just, yes. Yeah.
Do you think it's a higher level of clout to be called by your Instagram name, or they know you from Instagram and they call you your real name? What's cloutier?
I think if people do not call me by my real name, it's because they don't know how to pronounce it. So I think it's kind of a get out. Enough. If I had a normal name, I think it would be, but for my name, no.
And our other guest here, not even a guest, co-host, been on the podcast probably more times than she even wanted to. She also has many names: Anna, Annie, Doe, Hack, Romata, Gunshow. She goes by all of them. She prefers the first one, Anna. If you call her Anna, just make sure you've got a rock solid jaw, but she's going to give you some nice loving if you call her that. Annie, how are you?
I'm good. Nobody but my grandmother calls me by my government name. A full government name, which probably the same reason. Once you get past Anna, it gets a little hairy to pronounce, so nobody wants to call you that. The Gunshow is good. Life is good. Chaotic, but good.
Discovered right. You and my sister have the same name, the same middle name, and you were born in the same year.
That's the truth. Yeah. That's the truth. I saw her tag, and I was like, no, come on. Yeah. Get another Anna Rose? Come on. You. And she gave you that painting.
I'm not a semi-alcoholic midwife. I'm
We're very similar. It turns out. Wait a minute. Was I born elsewhere?
Yeah.
Could be me.
Keir, a question I've had for you for a while is, why do you like iced coffee so much? Why do you do that to yourself? Why don't you just drink hot coffee like a man and just leave the ice stuff in for, the Valley girls?
Incorrect.
I'm secure in my masculinity, It's an enjoyable beverage. If, for example, when you're working in the hustle and bustle of professional sport where time is limited, if somebody just hands you an iced coffee and you have to get it down, you can get it down immediately rather than be running around going. There you go.
It's a practicality thing. All right, there's your explanation. I can't argue against that because there is no retort there. That's a great point. Gunshow, hot or iced coffee?
Iced coffee, and also I would say in terms of masculinity, the less masculine thing is that whole thing. Oh my god!
Hugging up with the sweater draped around.
Right. You housewife.
The Xanax is over here. You're living that full housewife life.
Right.
Instagram, red cups. It's that time of year again.
I'm into that. There's some absolute cheugy. We're gonna bring cheugy full circle. Things that I do, and pumpkin is all one of them.
So, Keir, what have the latest happenings been? I think it's been, I don't even know how long since you last came on the podcast to talk general physical preparedness development. What's been going on?
I can't remember when I came on last. When did I come on?
I can't remember either, so.
Was I employed then?
Yeah, barely not. Yeah. 1 week out.
So I went full fuck it and left organized strength and conditioning for a few different reasons. One was, I'm single parent in the middle of a custody battle, and one of the biggest arguments against me is, oh, look how much time he spends at work. He's not going to be around, blah, 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 blah. So that's a major no-no, which it can be worked around. There were periods where I had my son by myself. I had him in daycare. I was working a lot of hours. I was in season. But it's very, very difficult to do, and it's still not as much, you're not as present or as spending as much time as you would like to, even under those circumstances. So I thought, that's the biggest price that I'm paying. What is it that I'm getting out of the job? And I've always tried to make my interns and my assistants think about, what do you do? 4 Ps. It's going to be pay, personal life, career progression, and purpose. So with the pay, it got to the point last year where I think I made 3 times online what I was making from the school. So it was a very fortunate, and that's not because I'm the world's best businessman. It's because the collegiate S&C pays like dog shit. But there was that, so I could walk away for that reason. And per unit of time invested, I should always go with myself versus the school. In terms of the personal life, horrible. I think it takes a very special type of partner to be a partner to a full-time strength coach and to be happy doing it. I'm sure there are a lot of unhappy partners out of there, and I'm sure there are a lot of partners where it's a lifestyle that's incompatible with what they're about, but certainly pro S&C is not good for your personal life, in my experience. And then the big part of that was with my son and career progression. I basically said to the athletic director, I said, oh, when I came here, there was a question mark of could I do this job? Could I be a director for a college football team? You offered me that opportunity, and the answer to that is yes. So now what are you going to offer me? Oh, maybe you're going to get to the NFL. I said, no. If I'm going to go to the NFL, it's going to be me that gets me there. You have ceased to advance my career. And then in terms of the purpose, probably a couple of guys that I'd mentioned on the call, Eric Corum was truthfully one of the 10 people in this field that I could work for, because he's that smart. He's done it that much. He left to go start up a company. Then my assistant, Scott, who's my right-hand man, got a job at Arizona. We pushed him out the door for the same reason that all of us were leaving. He actually considered staying, so we had to have a come to Jesus talk with him. So by the time these 2 dudes left, the school in their wisdom might have chosen not to fill those positions. So then I ended up being in the place 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. And always there had been that competition between what you do in the private sector, what you do in the collegiate sector. But when you're spending 14 hours a day, it's like, right, now you've really made the decision easy for me. So I quit. And the way that I'd kind of announced it was I was going to write a blog. So I wrote it on Medium, and I published it thinking, oh, I'll just, I'll copy this link and share it out to my social media accounts. And forgot when I signed up using Twitter. So I accidentally put this out to 20,000 people. And I woke up the next day to 100 DMs and texts, literally 100. It took me a day. I was flying to Arizona to go see Scott. So it took me a day to go through all these messages, and it got read by 10,000 people. So obviously kind of struck a nerve, which had confirmed what it was I want to do right now, which is there are a lot of unhappy people out there that are not content with the status quo in strength and conditioning. And there is a lot of code of silence. There are a lot more unhappy people than there are people speaking out because of the code of silence and basically the nepotism and like, hey, if you don't like it, I'm going to hire my guys and stuff like that. So if you viewed what I do online negatively, you just said I'm stirring shit and I'm being a dickhead for the sake of it. But I am trying to put out as much alternative viewpoints, like backing it up with like, hey, this is shit, you're dumb, this is a terrible idea, but also here's another way to do it. So continuing to try and grow Strength Coach Network, we just put out a long form course called Fundamentals, which has done really, really well, and hopefully going to keep moving forward in that regard.
Yeah, I've seen the ad for the new course out there. It's always on my Facebook. I'm scrolling and I see your shining face and it says, "Hey, stop scrolling for a second." And I'm like, "Okay, if you say so, Keir, I gotcha." And I always watch. So probably like 400 of those views are just like me scrolling, just be like, "Oh, hey, Keir, what's up, man? How are you?" So this is kind of jumping ahead in our question list here, but it segues nicely off what you just said right there, which is that career arc of a young strength coach, which has left people kind of with a sour taste in their mouth. And I mean, maybe it's because I like you and I think you're a nice guy, but I don't see you as stirring shit. I see you as someone who is pointing to a problem and offering a solution. The worst people in the world are the ones that point to a problem and then you say, okay, what's the solution? And they say, well, fuck if I know, but there sure as shit is a problem, so we got to get it fixed. So when we talk about the career arc of a strength coach, the way I outlined it was something along the lines of, you start your bachelor's degree. Maybe you were a high school athlete, did some lifting, you had an interest in getting stronger and more conditioned. So you start your bachelor's degree, internship, finish up, bachelor's, maybe you get a GA position if you're lucky, but those are kind of few and far between. And like you said, they pay like shit. So maybe you're still an intern, master's in S&C now, do some ass kissing, get some certifications that do God knows what for you. And then you keep your fingers crossed that when all that is said and done, you make $35,000 a year. Would you say that's an accurate classification of the S&C career arc for a young strength conditioning coach?
So you'd be lucky to make 35 off the bat.
Yeah, I shot a little high.
I work underneath me, who was in his late 30s getting 25 grand a year. Now, admittedly, he'd left, I think it was a D2 or a D3 job because of the glamour of D1, but that's what they had him on.
Very glamorous.
There would be no shortage of people to replace him with. Yeah.
So with that model, because things move slow in industries, when you're trying to reinvent how the career progression works in an industry, these things are going to move slow. So, 15, 20 years from now, do you see this still being the model that's followed? Do you see, an upending of the system? Will there be a revolution, a renaissance?
I feel like the biggest undercurrent to all of this is just simple supply and demand. So there's a couple of factors, but ultimately individuals compete in the marketplace to deliver a higher and higher quality product or service to consumers at a lower and lower price. And your labor is the product, and the athletes and the institutions are the consumers, and it's what you see. I know a guy he was a head of academy for a pro rugby team in England. So rugby union is not even the most lucrative sport in the UK. It's probably top 3. As a head of academy 22 years ago, I want to say he was earning £35,000, which adjusted for inflation is probably like 60 to 70 now. Maybe he had a degree, and he would freely admit that 22 years down the line, he's a much better coach than he is now. There are people earning less without adjusting for inflation, £35,000 in the same job. So the same job that I did for London Wasps 10, 11 years ago, the salary's not budged at all. So, and the reason for that is competition, because it's disappointing, but if you put yourself in the seat of the institution, your job is to go out and find the highest level strength coach for your athletes to be trained by for the lowest possible price. If the going rate is 25 and you pay 40, are you going to keep your job?
No.
No, it's going to be frivolous. So it's one of those lagging metrics where it almost has to get so bad that people are discouraged from joining the workforce. And then maybe it will, bottom out. Then there's a labor shortage. People start to pay more and more and more to get bums on seats. And then it starts to go up as people bid up the price. We are a long way from that. And one of the reasons for that is what constitutes, no, not what constitutes. Those institutions that feel the need and will put their hand in their pocket for a strength and conditioning coach continues to expand. So if you look at the way the industry has gone, 20 years ago, it was a preserve only of, I'll speak about Europe, top tier professional sports teams. Then it was second tier, third tier, fourth tier, basically all the full-time professional organizations. Then it was private schools. Now it's public school districts. Now it's, private sector. Then you get all the subsections like, cancer rehab, diabetes, like all these things. So, and we're getting it, in the US, the same has been done with the military. The amount of people that are leaving collegiate strength and conditioning for the military because that race to the bottom has not happened yet and the working conditions are much improved. That's happening right now. And as they roll out the new, is it the Army Combat Fitness Test?
Yep.
It's phase 1, the gyms are phase 2, staffing them is phase 3. You're going to see a huge wave of people go to that sector. And my belief is actually that esports is going to be the next military. That's what I think. So there's that, and a compounding factor is it's really, really easy to justify spending a lot of money when you can put a dollar amount on the return that investment brings. And this is why if you read it like Google, Facebook, and other pay-per-click advertising platforms, in the good old days of TV and radio, marketing was spray and pray. You spend $1,000 on ads, revenue comes in. Oh, which ads work the best? Which was a part of the message that convinced them to buy? Why do they do this? Why do they do that? Don't know. Spend more fucking money on ads, more money comes in, and it goes around like that. And obviously, there's a lot of money that gets wasted there. And Google and Facebook were like, right, this ad worked the best. They clicked this amount of times, and for every dollar you spent, you got this amount back. And then it's real easy to just keep spending money on Google and Facebook because every time you put in $1, you're going to get $1.15 back. So their marketing argument is, give us money, you'll make more money. The harder it becomes to demonstrate a clear return on investment when you're selling a product or service, the less people are willing to pay for it. So with that said, put a dollar value on the role of a strength coach within a collegiate sports team. Compounded by the fact that you're dealing with people, asking them to pay you money. What is your level of confidence in the average administrator or sport coach to precisely define the contribution of a strength coach?
Minimal.
Or evaluate it. Yeah. If they can say what you do with any accuracy, do they know how to measure it? No. So it just becomes about being liked, ingratiating yourself so that the less you can quantify performance, the more longevity and success becomes about ingratiating yourself to the person signing the check. And you just got to really hope that they like you, which means that you get to rise above the race to the bottom. There are people that make a lot of money in strength and conditioning, but it's like The Wire. Only one guy gets to be Stringer Bell. Everyone else is getting shot on the block. So Strength Coach Network, it would be fanciful to paint the reality as anything but that. What we're saying is, let's get you out of that bottom shit-eating level as fast as humanly possible, and here's how to do it. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
So developing those soft skills as well. I think that's one thing that when you're very green and you go into S&C, you're like, all right, I'm going to make strong guys stronger. And these coaches are going to see that. These administrators are going to see that. And they're going to think that I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And they might see it, they don't realize it, and also they don't give a shit about it because they don't want to pay you anything anyway. So yeah, like you said, building up those soft skills of ingratiating yourself with people and making friends and connections is a lot more important than any, you know, one by 20 analysis that you've got that you're going to bring to some sport coach that only understands bats and balls.
So here's an example. Here's an actual example. Eric won an ACC at Florida State. He was a director for Kentucky in the SEC. He was the head of sports science for an NFL team for 2 years, and then he came to William & Mary. Scott was clearly good enough that he could go to a Power 5 program, and I did what I did in rugby. When all three of us left, the response of the administration was, let's go to American Fitness and replace them with personal trainers. That's a real example. No disrespect to personal trainers. It's a different skill set, though. It's a very different skill set.
Those are going to be three very happy personal trainers. Very happy at first, and then it's day one, terrified. They're going to see what they got themselves into, immediately terrified.
Do you feel like the student athletes aren't going to notice? Well, I know the answer to this, and I know you know the answer to this, but they know. They're rumbling. They're like, what is, and no offense to whoever the hires were, but they're going, what is this degrade in coaching quality?
They know. They're not dumb. They call it the public Ivy League for a reason.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So like you said, this isn't going to change anytime soon. It's not going to change quickly. So it's important for those that are currently running this rat race to, you know, afford themselves opportunities to make revenue outside of what they're getting or not really getting in terms of payroll. So when you see, you know, young guys, young gals in this situation, what do you tell them? And this might be something that you have on SCN. What do you tell them in terms of making more money for themselves so that they can actually survive? Because if you just finished your master's degree, you probably got a good amount of student loans. The government's coming for your ass on those. You got to make money somehow. What are the other revenue streams that you pitch to young coaches?
Well, I mean, you touched on it. The most important thing is to recognize that the business that has one customer is run by an idiot, and you're the CEO of you. So you're one customer firing away from ruin. If you have 1,000 customers and one fires you, big fucking deal. It's 1% drop. So being able to diversify money coming in is probably going to cushion the blow when bad things happen to you. So I think that's like, accept that bad things are going to happen, mitigate for the damage that you're going to expose yourself to. One mistake that I made, 10, 11 years ago was not putting my eggs into the basket of scalable income. And by scalable, I mean, if you want to double your money, you have to double your hours or effort. Because when you are working strength and conditioning, just by the nature of the job, it's a lot of hours. You're going to be very, very tired, very, very drained. And you go to make money outside of that, let's say personal training, because that's the cliche. That's what I did, personal training. You say, I make $50 an hour. If you want to make 100 though, it's another hour. And really it's not another hour because you're having to do session prep, session breakdown, travel, all that kind of stuff. So if you do want to make, because here's the thing, the best case scenario is that you make so much money on the side that you can coach for a hobby. So to get to that point as a personal trainer, you're never going to sleep. So with all those jobs, it gets to the point where you are so drained from making the side money that you're dead in the coaching job, which means that it's not benefiting the coaching job and you're miserable, which defeats the object. So you have two options. One is to go find work that keeps paying you more and more and more, which obviously is probably not going to happen. The second is to put your time, energy, and effort into jobs where it's scalable, i.e., to double your money, you would not have to double your energy or effort. For example, subscription business. Strength Coach Network is the same amount of work to me. If 1,000 people join, if 100 people join, if 5 people join. It's more fun, but there are increases in costs, but they're not linear. So it's a much smaller increase in that stuff for the increase in money that it brings in. Other stuff like, it's probably not going to happen early in your career, real estate. When you talk about personal training, what I should have done was I should have rented a small space and done group sessions, and then start, let's say I can train 5 people without any drop off in quality, build myself up to 5. Okay, start marketing, hire another coach to do it in the same space as me. Now, I'll pay that person 80%, I'll keep 20%. Now they max out to 5 people. And then I've just doubled my money again. I can just keep doing it like that and trying to find ways to scale what it is you're currently doing. But be careful of jobs where there's a one-to-one relationship between input and output. And here's the thing about a day job where you get a salary. If you double your effort and hours in collegiate strength and conditioning, what's the increase? Fucking nothing. The institution's going to go, oh, great work, thanks. And then in April, they'll give you the 3% appreciation and performance bonus, which is really called inflation, which is, we value you just as much as last year, but we're going to dress it up as this as being a reward. Now be grateful.
Just because I've always been kind of somewhat curious about it, and let's just assume that these people do have kind of the means, the wherewithal to go into real estate like you did. I'm interested to hear kind of how you broke into that space, where in your career you broke into it, how you got into it, where you started, all of that.
Yeah. Well, this is not typical because, quite frankly, I left Japan. I'd saved. Well, here's the thing. The online stuff put me in this position, but when I was in Japan, I lived off the website because they were paying for my rent and they were paying for pretty much everything in Japan. So when I left Japan, I had $250,000 saved in the bank. So I just basically lived like pretty frugally when I was over there. So I came over and I could invest in real estate. So I bought a house. It's a shit house for cash. And then last year I took what I had left and got a mortgage and put that into a multifamily property. But the important thing is that yes, you are taking on debt, but other people are paying the debt off. The risk is that they won't, and you'll be left holding the bag. But that's why you keep money in the bank, and you have contingencies in place. But that's an example of you can scale up your effort because, one, you can borrow money to lever up how much money you're bringing in. 2, people pay off the debt for you. 3, it's an appreciating asset in its own right. And 4, once they're in, what do you have to do? I'm not going to go up the road and check on my tenant every day and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? It's like, it's no additional, I don't work any harder now that I have 5 units compared to 1 unit. Maybe a little bit harder because I've got a couple of deadbeats I'm trying to get out. But with that said, you might say like, oh, it's not everyone's got 200 grand saved up. In America, I'm not entitled to this because I'm an immigrant. You can have an FHA loan, which is 3.5% down. You do need a reasonable credit score, but if you put 3.5% down, they'll give you a government-backed mortgage to buy a property. So I'll talk about Richmond. Richmond, you could buy a duplex for, I don't know, 250. Not an amazing one, but you can buy a duplex for 250. So you need 3.5, 10 grand. You can save 10 grand in 2 years working at McDonald's. So once you do that, you put that down, buy your duplex, fill it with a tenant. The gold standard that everyone talks about is, live for free. You're going to have a tenant paying the entire mortgage from 1 unit. It's not going to happen. But guess what? You're probably going to be able to live for a couple of $100 a month. And then that becomes a virtuous cycle of, well, now you're living in a couple of $100 a month. If you don't change your lifestyle, you can start saving that money, putting it into, adding value to the house, stuff like that. So again, extreme example, I bought an apartment building, like a shit 4-unit apartment building, for $405,000, and I'm finding out this year why it was so cheap. But I'll have probably put 100 into it, and it will probably end up being worth at least 600 to 650. So then I can refinance it, take my money out, and hopefully do it again, and time it for when the world implodes next year.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what's your contingency plan for another pandemic, and how big was the sigh of relief when the eviction moratorium was lifted?
Well, so here's the thing. It's still in place. I believe it's still in place. So you can, and it depends on states. In the South,
That's
especially
true.
Arkansas, it's like 5 days delinquent, you can send in a sheriff to evict them. In typically in the blue states, it's like short of them running a meth lab or beating a hooker to death in one of the units, it's like you're not going to get them out. But what happened was I had a tenant in there I inherited this tenant, and they basically, when I bought the house, they gave me fraudulent rent rolls. They lied about the money coming in. I'm looking at it like, oh, there's money coming in. I think it was one missed payment for the entire building for the year. And yeah, then I found out this person had not paid rent for the entire duration of the time that they'd been there. Pre-pandemic, stayed the entire duration of the year-long lease, which expired on the 1st of January this year, and I just got them out last week. So it's a motherfucker. But yeah, that's where the contingency money comes in, because if I can do it with this, I can hopefully do it with regular people that have some sense of morality.
Hopefully. That's the hope.
Yeah.
Gunshow, you've been kind of around the ringer of this industry as well. Like, you ran through it as well. Do you have somewhat of a similar story of your kind of come up through the ranks here?
I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely a shorter version of it. Now I've kind of found a way to make it kind of make sense for me. But I think what's really strange is that when you're an undergrad student, when you're a grad student, it's the same thing. They I don't want to use the word grooming, because that's that's
Indoctrinating?
they teach you the whole time if you do right and you work hard and you go to your internship and you show up and you work very, very hard and you are really appreciative, you're gonna get this like bomb ass strength and conditioning coach job. And most people, that's not true, actually. For me it was, and I was really grateful, and I was also 21 years old. And I was, super grateful, kind of maybe even a little bit naive to what the scenario was. And within 2 years, I realized I would never have a family in the way that I was working. I was working 60, 70 hours a week, travel. I was the FNG, the new guy that always had to do things and stuff. I had an amazing staff where I was. I think everybody I've worked with went on to do great things with their careers, but I think they got out of it a little bit. I think they're doing side gig things, and I think that blew up for them. Like, I see that everybody that was with me at the time went on and did their own side hustle and turned it into their main hustle. And I don't think some of the best coaches I worked with are still coaching. I should catch up with them, but I realized pretty quickly that I did have aspirations that were very that needed some stability. And also, I think there's not a lot of discussion about the dynamic of a changing staff and what it might look like if God forbid the guy that is the football coach at your D1 SEC school gets cancer and has to step down. Kiss your fucking ass bye. Like, you're done, because whoever comes in.
That happened to Eric. So
Yeah.
when he came into the Texans, he didn't know it at the time, but there was this big rift between the head coach and the GM. And he came in not knowing it, that he was a GM guy, and the GM's wife got cancer. He took a sabbatical to go care for his wife, who ended up dying. And the second that happened, he was gone.
Absolutely.
And they made a point of saying, hey, you have a job. I think he had a year left in his contract. They brought him into office. Hey, don't worry. You're going to see out this contract, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Literally, like 2 months later, they're like, hey, that was a lie.
It's crazy, right? And then that's the implications down the line for you is it feels as though you were that particular Cornerstone Sports strength coach. And now, unfortunately, he's at the end of his actual life. And it's already kind of heartbreaking. And they're like, well, that's nice. This new guy's going to come in, and his staff from Baylor is going to come in. And then, so you're moving, and you're not moving, 20 minutes down the road to a different office building. You're moving to a different state, and you're taking your whole family with you. And when this was happening where I was, I had a colleague that had a 7-8 month pregnant wife at the end of our contracts, and they moved, and she had to like move OBGYNs, change her delivery plan. Your whole life is on this state of, well, is this going to even be stable? So shit money aside, shit personal life aside, shit kind of appreciation and job standard aside, you're never stable. And that was my experience, especially in like the D1 kind of division. I found a lot of stability in smaller colleges, quite a bit of stability. In fact, I've found ways to work through the industry where I can say, here's what I can bring to the table, here's what I can't do. And they're a little bit more upfront with me. It's like, we'd love to have you on staff. Here's what we can do. Is this workable for you? And so I started working like limited contracts, and that was useful to me. And then similar, I just started doing things on the side, and I agree with the military scenario. I like to think I pioneered that though. And I like to think I'm the George Washington of that. And you just start kind of playing around in different areas, but nobody tells you that. You have to figure it out. Like you find out along the way that you're not going to be stable. Is this workable for you? For me, it's not. I was like, no, I want some stability. Then what did I do? I married a guy in the military, and we lived in a travel trailer for a while. Well, that was weird, but life happens that way. So it's an interesting one, and they don't teach you along the way any financial literacy. It's not their responsibility.
For that on Strength Coach Network Fundamentals.
Oh.
strengthcoachnetwork.com/fundamentals. Yes.
Oh, there we are. Plug.
Link down below, folks.
Link down.
Go and sign up.
Send you guys a code so that anyone signing up through this will get $100 off. How's that?
Oh, that's awesome. That's fucking awesome. Yeah.
Our viewers like one thing and one thing only, and that's free shit. So ears have perked up.
No one said free. Hold on.
Yeah.
We're talking about financial literacy, and Keir's matters. Keir's matters. Well, I mean, it's your responsibility to find your way. It's all your responsibility. And so when I realized pretty quickly that I was going to have at best toxic relationships, at best like never own a home, like I just like, oh, I'm not going to be here that long, or I don't know what it is. I had to find other stuff to do, and I found a lot of. I credit strength and conditioning for wiggling me into the military world, but I love it, and there is stability there. So that was kind of my experience with it. And now, as you know, I work in a limited contract with a smaller college, and then I do a lot of stuff on the side, like just a lot of things. And that's a workable process for me. I will not work again in the strength and conditioning field after this contract's up. I'm done. Cooked. And it's a dollar per hour scenario. At this point, I don't have those hours anymore.
I see you saying that the same way that I see myself talking about teaching, where I'm like, I hate it. I'm never going back, not working for another university. If I have to teach S&C or basics of exercise science again, just put a gun in my mouth, and then someone's going to be like, hey, you want to come teach adjunct? And I'm like, fine, I'll do it. So you'll get suckered back in. I can feel it.
Conversations like I had yesterday will not tempt me back. Having to tell Aaron fucking Felt that gaining mass is probably not going to make you faster over a 40-yard dash. What the fuck? I have to explain that.
The drawbacks sometimes, man.
Fucking
the drawbacks.
hell.
So in the Instagramosphere, I think, and you probably get this a lot on your Q&As because you have a lot of young aspiring S&C coaches that, hit your DMs very regularly, I'm sure. People are always looking for that source of enlightenment. What's the book I can read to get to where you are? Who's the person that I should follow? What's the podcast that I should listen to kind of diversify what I do as a strength coach and revenue earner? So what was it for you? Was there a person? Was there a textbook that you read? Or was it just, trial and error, figure it out?
Oh, fuck yeah, I failed a lot. Well, back in the glory days of borrowing things from the internet via BitTorrent, I,
Those are the old days?
yeah, oh my God. Well, this is 2010. So when I moved to London, I ended up finding a place to live that was an hour 15 commute on the underground from where I worked. And I used to consume audiobooks. So it's one of those things where it's like training. You start off and you're like, bodybuilding's going to be the thing. I think there's a career progression for every strength coach. You think it's bodybuilding, then you discover that there's a guy named Louis Simmons, and you're like, oh no, I'm absolutely fucking destroyed from doing 1 RMs every week. Then you discover Glenn Pendlay, all this. So it's Olympic lifting. And then you're like, no, that's not it. And then you start to go to like Verkhoshansky, special strength, jumps, throws, plyometrics. And you're like, no, that's not it. Then it becomes conditioning. Then it's sports science and all this kind of thing. And it's basically you're going through the parking lot, turning over rocks to try and find the one that's got the $1 million underneath it. And intellectually, that's how I've always done it with books. It's like you read a book, you get 10 more questions, you read another book, you get another set of questions. It's just like you're just gradually expanding your knowledge and ideas and stuff like that. So in the same way that what I read as it pertains to training now, I would laugh and kind of look down my nose a little bit at me reading Poliquin Principles in 2005. I had to read it to get to that. And I feel kind of the same way with books in general. In order to get to things that I'm reading, like I bought a book last year that was painful to read, but it was called The Complementary Nature. It's about coordination dynamics and how you can express mathematically coexisting and diametrically opposed ideas. It was in terms of the math, but anyway, reading that versus like looking back 10, 11 years ago to a 4-hour work week, for example. Is it the be all end all? Nah, it's a bit of a pop culture book. Did it get me to reading stuff like that and to expanding my taste? Yeah. So I think it's more important to read consistently and to just keep looking for the next thing and to expand your taste. And I bought Ayn Rand recently. I'm going to get stuck into it now that my kid's not here. I'm named after a socialist politician. I consider myself pretty liberal and progressive, and I'm sure I would disagree with the concepts in that book, but I'm going to read it just to. I always like to disagree with people from a position of information rather than, oh, that guy's a cunt. So just, I wouldn't say there's been any one thing. It's more the process than the source.
What about you, Annie? Same question.
That's actually awesome because what I think books give you isn't a map to what you're going to do. Don't give me the roadmap to strength and conditioning. Maybe let me read it. You're right. But what I think has been just so valuable, unbelievably valuable in my life in all areas is conversations I'm able to have with other people that are intelligent, but also by way of reading, by way of taking in information and processing it, you get to learn who you don't talk to. Like not, not I don't fucks with them. Like not like that. But you learn who is worth having discussions with and who's going to expand your mind. You learn it much faster by way of understanding a variety of different concepts. So book wise, when people ask me like what's a good concurrent training manual that you should look through, I always say Vladimir Surin's block periodization so that you can understand adaptations and deterioration times. But is block periodization about concurrent training? Not really. It's about the principles of it, and then you can kind of go from there. That said, that book has had a 5% difference on my life because I'm like, okay, well now I have different rabbit holes I can go down, but I can also discuss things with people that I think are on the same train I'm going on. I don't know that there is one book or thing or stuff, but it's the conversations, it's the educated kind of dialogue we can have. A great example is just peeking into the gifted performance group coaches and having
Oh
you guys
God,
talk about I don't want to talk to you guys about recovery ever again, you know.
never.
But imagine being in a world where we can't dissect ideas and have that kind of honest discourse about fucking anything, right? Because we're dumb. I don't know.
He's not on the call, so we can just completely trash him. But our good friend Thomas Butler, there was a shouting match about the differences between recovery and adaptation that probably consumed the entirety of my Tuesday. No work was done that day. It was just back and forth yelling. But yeah, like you said, it's like you read the book, you read the text, you gain the knowledge of the principles, and then you can have this immensely productive discussion, debate, shouting match, whatever you want to call it, about the application of those principles. It's the bedrock, and then it's everything else from there, whether it's strength conditioning, whether it's real estate, whether it's making money, investing, whether it's fucking Bitcoin. I don't even know. You understand the basics, and then you kind of just take it and roll from there.
And it doesn't mean, like you said, it's not like you're not going to have a shit list of people where you fundamentally disagree and you're not going to talk to them. Like I keep dropping him, Eric. I used to joke that me and Eric were like the odd couple because he's like this evangelical, moderately conservative Christian from Texas, and I'm the loudmouth European atheist, and together they get up to the craziest capers. But like, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff like that he and I fundamentally disagree on, but that's my guy. And you know, we would be in the car, like just gonna get a coffee or something. He would just be like, "What do you think about abortion?" And I'll be like, "Oh fucking hell, this is like it's 9 a.m." But there's a lot of stuff that, you know, like fundamentally we're probably going to disagree about. But I have love for him, and I'm quite happy to discuss it with him.
Well, I think critical thinking, I think if you're able to I love that. I love asking people questions. And I've even said that to a gifted performance coach. Like instead of yelling and arguing with people, I do a lot of question asking to either walk people into things, you know, or else like actually understand what they're doing. I couldn't do that if I didn't have an idea of how their mind works and how my mind works and how I understand things, how other people understand things. But I like to understand it. What's that? What is it? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. I also like finding out.
Painful. That is is it 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Is that what it is?
It is a painful book. It took me like 3 years to read.
Is that out of that book?
Stephen Covey, yeah.
He said that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm embarrassed, but it is how I operate. Well, I came up with that, and Stephen Covey can suck my dick. But I agree with that. Like I do try to walk people into things, but it's only from a stance of, am I going to waste my time arguing with this person, right? Like, am I going to get an idea of what we're about? I don't know. And again, it comes down to like, there's a lot of people I disagree with in many, many ways, but I appreciate that they have a baseline in which to critically think.
And when I think about this conversation as a whole, the first thing that comes to mind was, Keir, your debate, if we can call it that, with Seidman, with Joel Seidman, Dr. Joel Seidman, sorry, Seidman himself. For those who haven't listened to that already, where was that hosted? Who hosted that debate?
Max Schmartzo and Vernon Griffith, but there's a copy of that on the Strength Coach Network YouTube as well.
Oh, sweet, perfect. When you were,
which is the thumbnail is we mocked up a photo of me holding Joel Seidman on my lap as a baby.
I saw that. But when you reflect back on that debate, how do you view it? Do you look back on that and you're like, all right, that was productive? Like I feel like I had a good conversation with someone, or do you look back on that and you say, please give me that hour and a half of my life back?
I mean, I spoke to a lot of people where, as I said, there's a lot of hesitancy to just call a spade in the industry, because again, it's about, you know, who knows you, who likes you, whose guy are you, and people are paranoid to just be like, this guy's a fraud, doesn't know what he's talking about. It's bullshit. Not specifically Joel, but plenty of other people. Because you might offend someone's guy, you might be bringing negative attention to the university that runs, institutions are paranoid about bringing negative attention, but they'll happily run an athlete to death or, have a sex scandal or pay someone hundreds of thousands of dollars to leave their job. Or, being perceived to be negative or like all that. People do not speak out. So what's the point in having all this freedom if I can't enjoy it? I'm just going to be like, this is bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about and you're wrong for these reasons. And then people are like, oh, yes. So I'm quite happy to do it for that reason. When you enter into a debate, I feel like the debate is for like 2% of the audience that might be on the fence, that you can maybe change their minds. Did Joel Seedman's, like, his disciples come away from that being like, you know what, that rugby guy's got a lot of fucking points? They'd be like, nah, he trains Taylor Heineke. He just got a feature in Men's Health. And guess what? He trained Jadeveon Clowney last week, who apparently has too much money. And the people that I'm sure I brought to the debate were like, they looked at the arguments that I put out. Doesn't matter who you fucking train. Doesn't matter, who's giving you a feature. This is what the data says. This is what the science says. This is what you did. The two don't match up. So it's like there's a tiny sliver that maybe that I convinced. Quite frankly, I did it for eyeballs and money.
Yeah.
So if you
effective, we were all watching.
Follows that I got from that, I got 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I probably added, I don't know, it was thousands.
Yeah.
Like, yearly revenue. So I'm quite,
that was content creation at its finest.
Oh yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I need to start some beef.
You do. I feel like you got some people that you can beef with.
Yeah.
Get out there and start beefing.
With marketing, like I speak to my assistant about this all the time. What I've learned through trial and error is the stronger your identity, and the you don't want to speak to this huge swathe of people and hit them at like a 2 out of 10. You want a core of people that are like 10 out of 10. That's my group. That's my guy. Mm. Which is why, CrossFit is a Scientology of exercise. They're all 11 out of 10. But in terms of marketing, so it's really about like identity, positioning yourself, in-group, out-group. This is what we're about. It can get a little bit culty. So that's one of the things that I've tried to build into the positioning of Strength Coach Network is we'll follow the logic to where it goes. Quite happy to be wrong, open to changing opinions, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the time, people struggle with that. So it's much easier to say what you are not by default to arrive at what you are. Yeah. So if you organically, by design, CrossFit has tremendous group cohesion and identity, and they have had numerous crusades in the way that they market themselves. For they're absolute mongoloids, but Gota, they've quite comfortably identified what they're not. So I think it's useful from a positioning and marketing standpoint to say like, that's what we're not, that's what we're not, that's what we're not, and just like, and like our kind of thing, because this is definitely the way that I worked, because I pissed off a lot of people and I don't give a fuck. We are not the Navy, we're the pirates.
So when you look at the industry as a whole and you see kind of these pockets of zealotry of people who buy into kind of one modality or the other, some folks argue from the point of like, that shouldn't be how it is. Like, like you said, it should be speaking to this wide swath of individuals. We should be hitting as many people with the quote unquote truth as possible. That's their marketing scheme.
No. You're going to go down to the local church today and hand out leaflets that say, oh, when you die, that's it. existence is fleeting and one day we'll all be nothing but dust. And you hand in the leaflets and go, oh, fucking hell, he's got a point. Nah. You've got the two people in the pews at the back like, fucking hell, is this thing real? Those are the people you need to market to. And if you do start to get into a situation where you're paying to reach people, and ultimately everyone pays when they market. They pay in time or they pay in money. The hard lesson that I've learned is money doesn't get tired and there's always more money. If you're DMing 100 people each day on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you're going to run out of puff and it's not scalable. But when you start to pay to reach people, to put your message in front of them, you don't want to be reaching the 99. You want to be reaching the 1, because then your cost per acquisition comes down. And ultimately, all business is about, does the lifetime value exceed the cost per acquisition? If it does, put in infinite amount of money. Amazon, I believe, it's been a while since I read his biography. Jeff Bezos' policy when Amazon was growing was, you can go out, do whatever the fuck you want, acquire me a customer, and you cannot spend more than $100 per acquisition. And his thing is, he said, your margin is our opportunity. So if I know I'm going to make, famously, I don't think they made a profit for like 20 years. If I know that I'm going to make $100.01 for every customer that I acquire, I'm going to go out and spend $100 and spend you out of existence and just keep borrowing money and just eat up all the customers. I don't have the stomach for it, but in the last couple of years, I know roughly how much each person is going to be worth to us. And that's why you see my face on Instagram.
He's burning cash. He's throwing cash at it. And here's the thing. If it was a product that wasn't helping people, that'd be one thing. But at the end of the day, what's being offered with Strength Coach Network is a product that it is a service that is genuinely, seriously helping people. And at the end of the day, a lot of people are very thankful, and you should be really, really proud of what you put out there.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to the guys helping me.
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, when you're running Strength Coach Network, are you actively putting in lectures of your own, or are you serving more as a content curator?
I learned the hard way. You can't be in the business working on the business.
Wow, Gunshow. At our last coaches meeting, that was her quote that she threw out. He's stealing all your quotes here. You really are
Stephen Covey, now Keir Wenham-Flatt.
Copy and paster.
Elon Musk is not on the production line, putting cars together. This is the difficult thing. So the temptation is, when you start out, is to make yourself the business, because you say, oh, I don't have to pay myself for content, or I don't have to pay myself for whatever, so I'm saving money. Yes, but you do not have infinite ideas in your head. People will get bored of you. You're not working on building the structures that allow a business to grow. And if you are the business, you can't sell the business. So there is a reason that Rugby Strength Coach branched off into Strength Coach Network. Go on Strength Coach Network Instagram. I challenge you to find my face. I do not do Strength Coach Network Instagram. I have an assistant that manages all that. I promote Strength Coach Network from my personal Instagram, but we've grown it to, I think it's like 12,000 people now, completely hands off. So now I know that aspect of it can grow, and I'm slowly putting off, more and more. So this time last year, I think I had like one assistant just helping me out a little bit. Now I have, at the end of the Olympic Games, I'll have 2 full-time people helping with the website. So that's like where I'm trying to go. The kind of thing that you tell yourself, it's a lie that you tell yourself, is like, oh, if I promote other people's content or material that's not my own, people won't pay me money. Oh, they have to want me. It's bullshit. So who just by their ability to promote and move product, who is the biggest bookseller in American history?
I don't know. You're going to tell us, though. Who?
Oh, motherfucking Winfrey.
Yeah. No, yeah, okay. Yep.
It used to be, I'm sure things have changed, but it used to be back in the day, if you sat on Oprah's couch and you had a book to promote, she would change your life. That's it. Like literally, she would make you a millionaire. And that that model, you realize, how many books has Oprah written? Zero. Like, actually, like novels, or I've tried to actually, I find her to be very, very interesting as a business person. I tried to find autobiographies, and for some reason, nobody wants to write one about her. But you realize, in a world of abundance, seek scarcity. In a world of scarcity, seek abundance. We live in a world of abundance. So Oprah's audience is bombarded 24/7. Buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. And a lot of people get disappointed because they get their pants pulled down and so on. So what Oprah is doing is acting as the gatekeeper, like you said, a curator, where her value, her brand is like, hey, if Oprah says it's okay, it's okay. So could you find all of the information within Strength Coach Network for free on the internet? Absolutely. Are you going to spend a lot of time, money, energy, making mistakes to get to it? Absolutely. So what we're trying to be is the curator to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way to do it. And then you throw the little RSC stamp on it, and boom, you are. I think you're the Oprah of the strength coaching world at this point.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have Oprah on the Gifted Performance podcast. It's a big day for us.
And you get an apartment. You get an apartment. You get a terrible apartment.
But you get evicted.
You get evicted.
The scalability of selling yourself is also something that I think gets really tricky at times, because when you have people that are just nut huggers on you and only you, and they only want you, you become that. We've all been in that spot, right? Where somebody comes to you, they want a service from you that is not necessarily your strength. For me, when people want something outside of tactical or concurrent training, I'm kind of like, well, there's better people, but they've created a link, and then there's a dilemma where I say, listen, absolutely no, and here's the right person, please respect this. Or I go, well, maybe I will take this exception because I do like people, and it puts you in a weird spot. Yeah, and so any Gunshow is limitedly marketable.
Yeah, it's you're prioritizing short-term gain over long-term scalability.
Right. And something that I've found to be true is exceptions will tear your business apart. Anytime you have any business and you start making exceptions, the bump in productivity, the little like, oh, I got to think about this person a little way harder than someone else. It just crushes you. And then from a totally different perspective, like if you can sell an idea, the ideal can be perfect. But if you're selling you, like, oh, I'm so flawed. They're all so like I was just a few different decisions away from a scandal at any time, right? Now I've mellowed out, but
I had to wean myself off, because it was like, oh, rugby strength coach, templates, online coaching, console, strength coach network, blah, 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 blah. So I made a concerted decision 18 months ago, no more online clients, which is, that's like decent chunk of money. Said no more online clients, no more consults, no more hours for dollars, only scalable shit. So I got rid of that. And now I still have the form up. If you want me to online coach you, I'm just going to say no, thank you. Go to Graham Morris, who's a great friend and colleague of mine. I want that business to go to him, and they're in good hands with him. So I don't do that anymore. Then it was like, oh, I'm doing these templates that are, doing decent money, and it's fun to do and easy to do. And I had to wean myself off. So like I left in the October, immediately put one out, and it did good money for me. And I was like, oh, one more. And I did another. I was like, oh, and then I did another. And that was January. That's it. No more.
Right.
No more. Because then you put pressure on yourself to make that money up with the thing that you're doing that's scalable. And if you can make that money up, you can make a lot more.
Right.
Hopefully.
The good thing about a template or a non-coaching option is it takes the monkey off your back a little bit. When you know somebody's like, hey, I really, really want to work with you. I've got 0 spots open. I do have a template. If you want to get this like Army Combat Fitness test, you want to take that under control, here's the template. Coming soon to Gifted Performance. but now they have on the real now, we'll talk about later, but on a real. But that gives people that don't necessarily, they don't have maybe the time for or the bandwidth for, and it's a very like small thing that they want, brushed off that way. But if it starts to take away from other things, you can't do it anymore. It's not scalable.
Let's see. What I would do now is I would turn that into a subscription with the group, and then I'd run it off TeamBuilder, who's one of my sponsors, TeamBuilder, and literally just do it like, hey, pay a paltry sum every month, but then it's one of those like scalability things, and then you just park an assistant on it and say, right, if this question comes in, this is the answer. If this question, blah 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 blah.
That's a good idea.
Right from there.
That's Ryan. That's a good idea.
The accelerator, move it over to TeamBuilder. That's what I'm saying. We were looking for something to house it. So, folks that are listening from the Gifted Fitness Accelerator, what's up?
Do you have TeamBuilder already?
We do not have an account set up right now. So we were looking at Train Heroic, but Tom was saying Train Heroic charges a ton. Keir's shaking his hand. He's contractually obligated to say this. So I guess we need to. I guess we're being told we need to check out TeamBuilder.
Like I tell people, there are other options out there. They sponsor the site, but before they were ever a sponsor, I'd already given them several thousand. So it was good enough that I was happy to do that, and then
yeah. That's awesome.
TeamBuilder, if you're listening, I'll have my people reach out to your people. We'll be in contact. So, Keir, since the last time we spoke, we had 10 coaches on staff, a nice even round number. Since then, we've brought on 3 other coaches, a lifestyle coach, a chiropractor, and another doctor of physical therapy. 13 is not it's not a round number, and it sure as shit does not cater itself well to a fantasy football league. So what we wanted to offer you here today on the recording is a position in the Gifted Performance Fantasy Football League, and that is American football, not football.
Handshake, yes.
He's in.
He's in.
So there is one caveat. I want him to agree to it first. So there is one caveat, and that is at the end of each week, the lowest scoring individual has to eat a gross sandwich of the winner's choosing. So last year it was the fillet of fish sandwich. So in week 1, if you were the grand loser, you had 1 McFish, 2, you had 2 McFish, all the way to week 13, where my poor roommate who weighs 115 pounds pounded 13 fillet of fish sandwiches in one sitting.
I would rather lay in a bed of dicks than eat 13 fillet.
So in week 9, I made the commitment that I was going to eat my 9 McFish and then run a sub 720 mile. So I finished my McFish and I immediately hit the road and I ran a 709 mile. And I felt about as bad as I've ever felt in my entire life after that. So we'll definitely get that set up. Annie?
I ate 12, and on my way to McDonald's,
I was hospital.
Like, man, I have to eat 12 McFishes by myself. And my old ride or die was like, I'll do that with you. And I was like, oh my God. And so we went and ordered 24 McFish sandwiches.
Good Lord.
What was the bill on that?
$70-something. And then we came back.
Is that a write-off? Did you write that off?
I might have to. No, it's too late now. I can't know. I don't know what to do. But then, like, the best thing ever was just sitting here. And I love that Cody, that doesn't like to be on social media, probably shouldn't, was like, put the camera on. We're doing this. We're doing it. It was a good time. I think it boosted our marriage a little bit.
Big fish.
It's adversity that galvanizes the marriage.
I'm going to eat 12 fishes by myself now.
I think that just about concludes us for the day. Anything you wanted to circle back to, Annie, Keir? Keir, thanks again for coming on. It's always fun chopping it up and shooting the shit with you.
Thank you.
Anything, Annie?
Hey, I do know that a lot of my colleagues in the S&C world listen to these gifted performance podcasts, and I appreciate it. Circle back around to Strength Coach Network. You do have time.
Thank you.
Plug.
It's only $1 to try.
Only $1 to try, and I'm being told that there might be even a coupon code headed our way if you do want to sign up for that full year. All of those links will be in the description of this video, as well as the show notes if you're listening on Apple Music, Spotify, all those others. Make sure you do the usual YouTube algorithm stuff, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, send it to your mom, your dad, your dog, all that good stuff. We will see you on the next one. Until then, stay gifted, folks. See ya.